Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. Brian, fantastic for you to be joining me today. So to start with, please introduce yourself and tell everybody about the great work that you do.
Thank you so much, Alan, for having me. By the way, I am Brian Bantilan from the beautiful island of Southeast Asia, which is the Philippines. Although I am from the northern part of Mindanao, the one of the largest island. So I am currently a values education teacher from Philippine Science High School, Central Mindanao Campus, and also the focal point of Living Values Education and the country ambassador of World Values Day. I was able to meet this great man, Alan, here and invited me. So although we have some acquaintances in World Values Day and some personal emails, because we have the same advocacy to promote values, just like our theme for today is World Values Day, bringing values in life. So that's our history, and that is how I was able to meet this wonderful person, and I'm very happy and wants to collaborate with this person in spreading these values, especially Values Jam. Hopefully, we will be implementing that this year.
Thanks, Brian. And maybe you could just explain a little bit about how seriously the education function in the Philippines is taking the topic of values, because not every country puts so much energy behind it.
Yes, I am proud and happy to share to the different countries that our Department of Education, we have this Republic Act of establishing the good manners and right conduct. So it will be part of the K to 12 program, that within the K to 12 program, there is this subject called values education slash good manners and right conduct, or in our language, we have this edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, basically values education. Why? Because the legislator uh, was able to recognize the importance of values, because we can we cannot help but compare the attitude before and the attitude now in terms of our youth. So thus that has been the advocacy of some legislator, that why not we will bring back good manners and right conduct in our curriculum. And during the former president um, Duterte, he approved the Republic Act, which is the establishment of good manners and right conduct. So basically today, in today's curriculum, the what we call the Matatag curriculum, as promulgated by our former Department of Education Secretary, also our Vice President and the daughter of our former President, that it will start to inculcate the different trainings in bringing values in life, or especially bringing values in education. Why? Because why is it important? It's because this is the core subject where other subjects follow. Because as I always shared, what is the use of your money? What's the use of your intelligence? What's the use of your status in the community if you don't have that values? It is that values that motivates us to work hand in hand, just like the Hinduism, that in diversity there is this unity. It is the values that hold us together, having this identity. So I am proud to share to the different countries that look at Philippines. We are proud that we have this Republic Act, or the national law, which which gives the values education as an important subject in the K to 12 program.
Yeah, and I think it's a very smart move to have this very structured approach, because in history, we've kind of relied on communities, and we've relied on religious communities, and we've relied on family units to provide this guidance around behavior and character. But as time has gone on, family units are not as strong as they used to be. Religion is not as strong as it used to be, and communities are not as strong as they used to be. So without this infrastructure in place, it's not surprising that character and behavior can suffer as a result of that. And so for the Philippines to put something like this structured approach in place, I think is extremely insightful and progressive. So it'll be great to see the positive impact that can be achieved. So today we're going to choose a ValuesJam card, Brian. So I'm going to tip the cards out. And how many piles would you like me to make in front of me?
Three.
Three. Okay.
Yes.
And they're going to be different sizes. So left, right, or middle?
I'll go for middle.
Middle. Okay. Well, that's the biggest pile. I've now got to count how many cards. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 26 cards here. So a number between 1 and 26.
I'll go for 20.
20. Well, I'm going to count from
Yes.
the back. 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. And this is our card. Well, Brian, you've chosen one here. Wisdom is the card that you've chosen. And I hope that you're pleased with that. It's a big word, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with the first question. And could you please think and share your thoughts about what does wisdom mean? And what does it look, feel, and sound like?
Wow, that's a tough question. I guess wisdom is it's like a lighthouse that guides us in our dark moments. How does it feel? We can say it's the common sense that mostly uncommon.
It's a great way to put
And
it.
yeah, it's also associated with the aspect of conscience, I guess. It's a little voice that leads us to what we ought to do as a person.
So our conscience, yeah, right, okay. I love that image of a lighthouse, actually. And if I can add to that, it would be a lighthouse that has been there for a long time, right? So there's something about the benefit of experience that enables wisdom. Um, and also something about not being rushed, right? So wisdom is a very considered approach, very calm. So, you know, not a lot of pressure to make a choice or a decision, it feels to me. And what about the meaning of the word, Brian? So you've mentioned the conscience. I love how you talk about common sense, but it's not so common. What else comes into your mind when you think about wisdom?
It's like a when I think of wisdom, it's like this light bulb or the what we call eureka aspect. This is
Yeah,
it. This must be it, something like that. So as you said a while ago, yes, it's a lighthouse that it's been there for many years, but seldom we recognize its existence
right.
because we rely on our maybe caprices, we rely on our biases, something like that, not looking at the objectivity of a certain aspect.
Yeah. And when you said eureka, I had just written down uh, these words. So I wrote, yes, I get it. Because when somebody with wisdom says something, it kind of makes absolute sense. You know, you say, oh, yeah, of course. And yet it's not always easy to arrive at those decisions or choices or be able to explain something in that way. Um, Okay. So if we move from that kind of general introduction to the topic, where have you noticed a lack of wisdom? So wisdom missing.
I guess for me, it will be missing because of our biases, of my biases, that
Okay.
I am afraid to confront what is the truth because I want to be biased with all my decision, not knowing that my decision is not the objective but the subjective aspect of life. So as I've said a while ago, it's a lighthouse that yes, it's been there, but I seldom used it because I want the world to be under my perspective, not what is objective. So that is why I tend to neglect it and I tend to not to use it because it might hurt my biases, something like that. It might hurt my plan. No? As I've said that I already have this plan, but along the way it won't work out. So I'm afraid to see the consequences of all those things. That is why uh sometimes I neglect to use wisdom
Yeah.
because it's
And
truth hurts.
can you think of an example that comes to mind?
For example, in choosing what's best for me. For example, I ought not to do this, but I still do it because I love to do it, even though it's not good, it's not proper, it's not moral, something like that. So I didn't rely on the wisdom, but rely on my maybe senses, instinct, but not what is the logical, something like that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point about instinct because, like you say, sometimes we're faced with a situation where maybe we're thinking this might not be the best thing to do, but we still do it anyway. What's that all about?
Uh, Maybe I can say that this is not what I want it to happen if I will follow the wisdom, if I will follow what's logical. And I want it to be different, that is under the control of my fingers, at the tip of my fingers, that everything should follow. Neglecting what are the possibility, neglecting the logics behind if I will follow wisdom. So I'll just say that again, it will boils down to my biases in life, subjectivity of how I viewed life per se.
Mm,
And as I've always shared in my class that yes, we have, according to in philosophy, we have different souls. We have the vegetative souls, we have the appetitive soul, no? Something like that. And instinct will fall into animals because instinct is not all instinct are logical, but it's just sometimes bias, something like that. So I guess I fall to that second kind of soul that will rely on instinct, not on logical, because instinct is basically, for me, I guess, it's bias, it's subjective.
yeah. There's somehow a contradiction emerging here because when I think about wisdom, I tend to think of somebody who is able to draw on lots of past experience, right? In order to be able to assess a situation and in order to be able to decide with wisdom the right way or best way forward. But we're living in a world that is changing increasingly fast. And so the benefit of past experience is probably less valuable now than it used to be because things are changing so fast. Things are different. They're not like they were before. So the person that is drawing on past experience maybe is not as wise as somebody who is able to accept that things are very volatile and changing and ambiguous. So what do you think about that seeming contradiction?
Uh, we have a saying here in the Philippines that I'll just have to say it in our language and I'll just have
Yeah,
to translate. Ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa pararoonan. Those person who will not look back where they came from, will not reach, cannot reach to to their destination. I guess what's the moral of in that? Is the moral in that is that yes, it's the thing in the past, but there is in the past that we can learn and apply in the future. So it means to say that there are past experiences, past learnings that we can also adapt now. Because
yeah,
that's also the reason why the GMRC or the values education was again re-implemented in our curriculum because we have GMRC, good manners and right conduct before. And the attitude of the student before and the now is totally different. Although we can compare two generations, but what's the essence there is that we can learn from the past. And yeah, I do agree with you, but not all the past because life is changing. There's no permanent in this world except change, according to Heraclitus. But yes, we need to adapt. We need to extend, but again and again sometimes we look at past at something that is the old thing. Yeah. Because we cannot my student will always say, my mother will say me before our time, our generation before, and then the children will say, that was your time, that is not
yeah,
our time, right? But yes, time is changing. What is important in wisdom is our adaptability. Our
yeah, right.
adaptability and our attitude for to bounce back, you know,
Yeah,
to bounce back. Resiliency, the term
yeah,
resiliency. So it's easy for us to say, but it's hard for us to let go, especially if we are attached to that past that we think that that's the common thing, you know, because in there's a saying that you cannot teach new tricks to old dogs, right?
yeah,
Because they are used to that kind of. But I'll go for your statement, which we must adapt because time is changing and wisdom is the values that will guide us actually to meditate, to ponder upon all these things and trying to look at myself in relation to the situation. That is why in the counseling, this is also there's always I cannot remember our professor says that do not force the issue. You just react if the situation calls for it. I guess that's a good wisdom that we
yeah.
cannot stay on our past, but we need to be mindful that life is changing and change is permanent. So wisdom will certainly guide us to adapt and to accept the changes,
Yeah.
especially in our values.
And you know the saying that you quoted about learning from the past, it made me think of another metaphor about driving. So it's something like when we're driving, we cannot always be looking in the rear view mirror, you know, because if you do that, you're going to have an accident. So the best thing to be able to do is to be looking forward to see where the road is going and paying attention to that. But at the same time, occasionally and frequently, looking in the rear view mirror just to check if there's anything that you can learn. So, you know, to kind of blend this with the saying that you quoted, perhaps it could be that we do look in the rear view mirror to the past, but not just that,
Yeah.
because we want to make sure we're safe and going forward where we want to. So maybe you can do a translation of that and you can use a variation of the original saying and create your own Brian new version of that saying.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
listen, I've got another question now. So in ValuesJam, there's an opportunity for you to create your own question about wisdom. So let me invite you to do that now. So ask your own question about wisdom, beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how. And then either you can answer it first or I can answer it first, and we'll see where we go.
Okay.
So you ask the question.
Who, right? I'll start with who.
No, well, it's up to you. So it can be either beginning with who or what or where or when or why or how.
That is
Any
in that is in relation to wisdom.
Yes.
What is wisdom in this world we call the world of uncertainties?
Yeah, so this is a continuation of what we were talking about just now, isn't it? And you were talking about how adaptability is the way for us to go. And I think that's a really strong point. And the word that comes to mind for me is context. So the people that are able to apply the principles perhaps of the past, but not in the context in which they previously existed, but in the context now, are the people that I think are going to show the most wisdom. So you cannot just say, oh, this happened before, and so this is what we now need to do, because the situation might be different now than it was then, and so you can't do exactly the same thing. So I think you used the words adaptability and resilience. So for me, it's adaptability, flexibility, context, um, and application of principles rather than specific details. Maybe that's how I would open the conversation. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I do agree with your adaptability, resiliency, and I guess while listening to you, there is this word that comes out in my mind, which is the word confidence. That is how I observe my students. They have this wisdom, they have these ideas, they have these values, but they are not confident enough to share it because they are sometimes confused, doubtful of their capacity to share. Because maybe they are dependent with to the decision of their parents, dependent to their
Yeah,
peers. That is why they don't have this sense of identity. And what I love about it is that I have this values notebook. Reading their values notebook, you will be touched because this is this is a silent problem actually, that we thought that they are okay, where in fact they are not okay. Now, how can they use wisdom if they don't have this sense of confidence? And that also applies to me. Sometimes I am not that confident enough to share my ideas, my thoughts, the values, because of that confidence that maybe people might say it's not good.
yeah,
Maybe people might say that, oh, it's not that effective, or people might question my integrity. No, it's a attacking me yun, on the fallacy, the argumentum ad populum. The fallacy is, the argument is against me, not with the one that I am sharing with. I guess that is also a factor that makes this wisdom uncertain in this world of uncertainties.
Mm. And that the relationship between confidence and wisdom, I think, is a really interesting one, because what you don't want to do is give your students a sense of confidence that is shallow. You know, we
Yeah.
all know people that seem confident on the surface, but actually, you don't have to go very far before you find out that that confidence is not really founded on very much. And actually, you've reminded me, my daughter went to a personal development workshop quite some time ago. And I'll share this with you because maybe it's something that you can pass on to your students. So the facilitator explained in this workshop that one technique is for you to consider your dinosaur tail. And what they meant by this was, imagine a dinosaur with a massive tail behind it, and this is what gives it stability. and stops it from being knocked over, right? The tail behind it. And
Mm.
our equivalent of the dinosaur tail is to think of all of the people around you that support you, all of the successes and achievements that you've had, all of the positive feedback that you've received. And so this guy was explaining, if you're going into an interview situation, for instance, in the period of time just before you go to the interview, really concentrate on your dinosaur tail. So all of those things that support you, so that when you go into the situation, you will be confident and you will be strong, and it will be difficult to knock you off balance. So maybe that's something that you can adapt or apply in the situation that you were just discussing there.
So that's a good allegory actually. That's a good moral. So it means that the tail also serve as your anchor, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And actually, Brian, just to take it a step further, when I heard that, I loved it. And then I've combined that with something that my grandmother used to say. So when I was a little boy, my grandmother often said to me, follow your nose. And kind of, I'll never know, obviously, because she's not here anymore. But I sometimes wonder whether there's a connection between her, and she used to say that. And then, as you know, I've developed a strong interest in the area of values, in how values can guide us. And I just wonder whether actually my grandmother's version is the same thing. To follow your nose means to understand your values and to move in that direction. So I combine that with the dinosaur tail. And if you're following your values and you have this strong sense of tail keeping you stable, then you'll be in a good place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But you give me a nice thing to share to my student actually. The
Good.
dinosaur. Yeah.
And I don't know whether you have what reptiles do you have in the Philippines? Do you have anything very large?
We have crocodiles.
Okay, so maybe it's a crocodile tail rather than a
Yeah.
dinosaur tail. Yeah.
Without the tail, it cannot, no, make its way.
Yeah. Okay. So let's have one big question now before we kind of draw this values jam to a close. How could more wisdom improve the world?
It will serve as a compass that will lead us to this aspect of objectivity, this aspect of unity amidst diversity, and an aspect of bringing the best out of us. So that is how important wisdom is. And wisdom can also make us, just like in my shirt, authentic.
Yeah, and when I read that question, I was just starting to think about some of the situations that we have in the world at the moment, and we're clearly not acting with wisdom.
Yeah.
We're just so far away from it. If you look at the situation in Ukraine, or if you look at the situation in the Middle East, there's not a lot of wisdom being shown there. So why is it that we behave so badly and seemingly have so little wisdom?
I guess we will go back to our discussion a while ago that we follow our instinct, not our rationality. And we always go for the easier path rather than the path that is less traveled. because in our discussion a while ago that it takes a lot of courage and confidence to really live up with our wisdom. But because of the world's temptation of these worldly things, and it diverts us, it always go back to our aspect or our what do you call this, our image of that lighthouse, that it's there but we seldom used it because we believe in our capacity, we believe in ourselves that we are the best, we can handle things, not relying to what is objective. And that is,
Are you touching on ego here, Brian?
yes, the ego itself. And it's, the greatest enemy that we can face it is ourself, our ego. And that this the thing that hinders us to accept wisdom and to apply wisdom in our life. Sad
Yeah.
to say.
I tend to use this story quite a lot. I'm not sure if I might have shared it with you in our previous conversations, but I sometimes think of a spaceship above planet Earth, and there are two aliens in the spaceship looking down, and one says to the other, well, they've created lots of wealth on this planet. Seems impressive. And the other one says, well, I'm not so sure, because at the same time, look at all the waste. There's lots of wealth, but lots of waste as well. And then look over there where people are killing each other. And look over there where people don't have enough food and they're starving to death and they don't have clean water and they don't have education. And the first one says, yeah, you're right. Shall I report back to head office that there is no intelligent life form here and we continue our search?
Wow.
But it's like,
That's yeah,
why would we allow this to happen when there are enough resources on the planet for everybody, right?
yeah.
So it doesn't seem to be displaying very much wisdom to be behaving in the way that we do as a humankind.
Yeah. And that is also the movement of Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. That it is our desire that kills us.
Right.
That it is our desire that enslaves us actually, that makes us suffer and all those things. And I just love the story of Buddha in relation to this one, when he was trying to contemplate on what will be the correct way for us to correct our or to free ourselves from suffering. For how many years he's been searching for that enlightenment, but sad to say, he failed until while he's doing the meditation near the river bank, he heard the conversation between a father and his son. He is teaching his son how to put strings in the guitar. I don't know if it's a guitar, but it's like a string instrument, something like that. And the advice of the father not to lose because it won't play, not too hard or not to fix because
Yeah.
it will break.
Yeah.
So from the time uh, Siddhartha was able heard those advice from the father, he said, "Yes, life must not be too loose and not too strict." And that is wisdom actually. And then that's the start of Buddha. No longer Siddhartha, but it's Buddha because enlightened. And yes, you are correct. And the story of that rocket, yes, that's correct. That uh, it's just like common sense, but it's uncommon.
Dead right.
We know what to do and what we ought to do, but we tend not to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I love that life is like the string, not too loose, not too taut. Um, that's a brilliant way for us to come to the very final question now for ValuesJam, which is, what are you encouraged to do differently about wisdom as a result of our conversation today?
to do the things that is not conventional.
Okay. And
To
when will you have the first opportunity to put that into practice?
think, I guess I need to think before acting,
Okay.
not not focused on the emotional aspect of my the way I see things, but the rationality. Because even I just in the course of our conversation, it reminds me of my I do not know my game in my iPad. Don't know the I don't know if familiar with Candy Crush, something like that.
No, I'm not.
You have to match the color or the image so that it will break, something like that. So
Okay.
out of I sometimes go do the easiest way, not looking at if I will do this actually. Yes, it will break, but if I will do the other thing or the other the other part, it will break all of the parts. So, but I choose the easiest way, not thinking of the entire picture, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
to do that, yes, the same thing. Yeah, you remind me of the thing that I always share to my student, that for you to appreciate the portrait, the picture, or the canva or the painting is that you have to remove yourself away from the picture for you to see the entire picture of the painting. So it's like that. So what I will do is the thing that the thing that I do usually, the common thing that I've been doing. So yeah, it's hard to really to do the other way around, but I guess it gives me a challenge and it gives me the confidence that before I will act, I have to think it over.
Mm. And I love what you're saying there about looking at the whole picture. There's a guy called David Bohm whose work I'm just in awe of his work. He was an astrophysicist early in his career and then became interested in philosophy. And one of the things that he talks about is exactly what you've mentioned, the fact of appreciating the whole rather than to try to break everything down into its smallest parts. And the example that I enjoyed most is he talks about the nighttime sky. And he said, you know, when we look up at the nighttime sky, we celebrate the stars. We say, don't they look beautiful? But actually, the only reason the stars are visible is because of the black velvet background.
Yeah.
And so what he's saying is we need to appreciate the whole rather than just the stars. So
Yeah.
I'm just echoing what you actually said, which is a beautiful way to bring this to a close. Mine's a request actually, Brian. So, you know, you talked about the Siddhartha and the Buddha stories. Do you have a link that you would be able to send to me on either of those so that I can learn a bit more?
Yes. Actually, that is one of our resources when I had my philosophy course.
Okay.
It's the Oriental philosophy. I can also share that to you. And because I really love the story, especially the story of Siddhartha. And we are ordinary people, but we can do extraordinary things ordinarily.
Yeah, and so that's it. That line, go on, just give us that line one more time to finish this values jam, Brian. Ordinary people.
Ordinary people doing extraordinary things ordinarily.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.